Welcome. Join me as I learn to construct a traditional Andean style sling. For part 2 of this construction, we'll be using a Kumihimo style disc to bring together the finger loop. From there, we'll begin the 16 strand retention cord braid. Okay, so now I've gotten to a sufficient length that I'm happy with so that this can be folded over to make the finger loop of the sling. To blend the two together, I have two 8-strand braids that I've been working with. I'm going to bring it together into a 16-strand braid. And to do this, you're going to want to match the uppers and lowers that we've discussed from one side and the uppers and lowers to another side, and to keep them organized. Doing this all in hand, an experienced person might be able to do this. I think it might be a little much for me to try to balance it once, so I just took a knife and some cardboard here, and what I'm going to do is I basically made a little makeshift Kumihimo disc. So what I'll do is I cut a square and I cut some notches along each of the sides. And so what my goal will be is to take one end up through the center, find its uppers and its lowers, and basically arrange it according to the plan or the pattern that it's been making. And then I'll do the same, bring this side up and alternate it through as well. So it'll be one from one of the sides, one from the opposite side, and then kind of vice versa around, so that I have a complete disc of 16 with alternating uppers and lowers so that I can begin my 16 strand braid. So I'll come back to that once this is laced up. Now I've finished with bringing the tail, or the other end, the end that actually had begun, and then when I braided, I actually braided up along here to this point. So this was the very, very beginning of the braid, and I've brought it up through this disc, and I've laid out the strands in such a way that the uppers and lowers are configured in the same way as where the braid is that I finished. So pointing at the lowers, uppers, lowers, uppers, lowers, uppers, lowers, and the uppers. Okay? Now there's one thing you have to keep in mind, that if I were to just start braiding with where these are now, these threads are above these threads. Similarly, these are above here. So I need the entire disc to be oriented appropriately. If I think of which thread I would take next to move, I can think of that as being the lowest towards my feet. Like that should be the absolute lowest, is the one that you're about to move next. So if that's the case, you can see the east to west crossover last, so we're due to make a north to south move. So that would be this thread here, and this one here, as well as these two lowers down here. So those 4 threads need to be the absolute lowest on this disc, okay? This one has nothing underneath it. This one has nothing underneath it. This one's fine as well, but this one is running over these two. So what I'm going to do is, if I can, basically I'm going to push this down through. And this is why I made a generously large piece of cardboard when I cut this, just so I'd have enough space to work with as I did that. Okay, so now that lower is ready to move. It's underneath all of them. Okay, I'm going to do that for all the threads. So that needs to be the absolute lowest. The next move would be an east to west, so I'll adjust for the lowers on that. That'll be the second lowest. Then it'll be a north to south, and these uppers would become the lowers at that point. So those uppers on the north to south would be the third lowest, so closest to you, closer to you. And then finally what you see here, the east to west uppers would be the top. So I'll be right back once I've sorted that. As you can see, now I've sorted it out, and also where the lowers of each of the directions are the proper height. So the first that would be moved, which would be these, are the absolute lowest in the mutual braid where it comes together. I also adjusted the tensions so that the two braids come together neatly, pretty tightly here. And I'm gonna start on braiding the 16 strand retention cord. Just to make it a little easier on myself, I'm gonna do the first couple passes using this created Kumihimo disc. I'll show you what this looks like. So the last moves were east to west. We need to do a north-south exchange. So lowers, lowers. These are going to be going in a counterclockwise. So the lower crosses over to that upper, and this lower crosses over to this upper. To use the disc from one cycle to the next, you have to stepwise then the old upper into being the new lower. Rather than doing it one thread at a time, I tend to move the lowers like I just did, and then move the old upper over and that lower into place. So once it's moved, you can drop this into place. Otherwise, a lot of Kumihimo instruction or would have you move one thing at a time, and what that would look like is you come down with one, and you actually use, this is why I have an extra slot here, so you would use that one, then you would move this over, and you come up with this one, and then you would move one over and that over, and that would finish it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just pick up both and drop both if you're doing it that way, which might be a little more effective. Anyways, that's how you move when you're using the disc here. Next would be our east to west moves. I'll do that kind of quickly just so you can see what that looks like as well. So you have your lower. I'm going to set it basically on top of that upper. I'm going to take this lower, set it on top of that upper, and then basically what I'm going to do is move that one up, that one down, and this one down, and this one to there. Same thing, we've got a lower and a lower. Pass, pass. Kind of give it a little bit of tension there. Shift positions and drop it. Shift, and that's shifting the upper to where it'll be set for to be the lower on the next pass, and then I drop it. And so anyways, there's one of the north-souths and one of the east-wests with the 16 strand using the disc. I'm going to do a few passes of that and then show you the progress. Alright, so I've got a little bit started now, as you can see here. Let me try to zoom in. So you can see the two sides have come together and formed a single cord. Now I'm going to try to do a zigzag pattern, but to do that I have to change direction about every well, with the 8 strand it was every 3 cycles, and the book suggests that for the 16 strand you change every 6 cycles. So we'll see how that works. To do that, using the disc here, I'm going to do that hop over just to get myself sorted to doing the other direction. So I change that over and take the upper and you go over the lower, upper, over the lower, and then this one upper, over the lower. So while I was going counterclockwise, now I'm in a position where I can pull this lower down to that upper, and this lower up to that upper, which starts me in that clockwise fashion. So then I'll just switch those, put them down, switch that, put it down, and then I'm going to do the same for this. So bring the lower over, move the upper, there we go. So the reason the authors suggest doing that high over the low before transferring, now I'm doing the east to west, high over the low before switching, is to avoid that sort of stretched stitch or that skipped stitch look. So this sort of resolves itself better in the patterns. Take this over this. So now this one's set up also to go lower over to this upper. It'll be going also in a clockwise fashion. So to complete that, here we go. There we go. So now I have reverse directions. That counts as my first of the cycle, so I'll do 5 more in a clockwise direction before I would switch direction again. Let's look at where we've gotten to at this point. I've now created a few inches of kind of a zigzag pattern. can see it here. And I've used the makeshift cardboard Kumihimo card just to assist and kind of get in a rhythm with it. Now I want to transfer back to doing it just in my hand without the cardboard tool to assist me. So to do that, I'm going to basically I'm going to let these pop free the whole way around. I'm going to do one side at a time and kind of drop these down through. Again, it's nice having a makeshift card that's big enough that you can do that. I'm going to grab a hold of this. I'm going to pop these ones off. And again, kind of stuff those down through. The other thing I could have done was, and probably would have been easier, would be to undo all of them and just pull up, pull the braided portion up through the center. So you can do that as well. But this allows me to kind of get my grip ready and proceed. So basically, once we're free of the card here, we'll be able to commence doing the passing of the braid as if the card wasn't used at all. So again, I'm gonna kind of do this, unthread it. Aha, there we go, we're free. All right, so now we have our groups of threads, and we're just going to do this by hand. So here we go. We've got a hold of it. We can look underneath to find where the uppers and the lowers are. So these two are the closest to the top, as you can see here. Let me try to focus that. These two here are the uppers, and the green one and the orange one there are the lowers. So if you pull them both up, you'll be able to see the lowers pretty clearly. Okay. And then on the other side, you got the lowers, this red and this green. So here we go. We're working in a counterclockwise motion, so I'm going to take this lower green over to this upper green, and I'm just going to hold that down. Next, I'm going to take the lower green and bring it over here to the yellow, which is an upper. Then I'm going to bring the next lower over to the upper. And then the final lower and bring it over. So there we go. We're free of the cardboard and we're starting to find the rhythm here of doing this in hand again. So passed it off, and we will begin with the next one. Now we're going to do one more thing just to show you, now that I've kind of got a little more sorted. So we've got a lower, passing it over to an upper, a little bit of a pull. We've got a lower, passing it over to this upper, hold it down, lower, pass it over to this upper, then we have this lower, we're passing it over to that upper, and that's it. So there you go. Kind of give it a little bit of attention, exchange your threads, and this is where you can kind of bring it up, pull again, resort it, and then there you go. You're ready for the next one.